This episode is in partnership with Authority Magazine. Authority Magazine, a Medium publication, is devoted to sharing in depth and interesting interviews featuring people who are authorities in business, pop culture, wellness, social impact, and tech.
Today, we want you to grab a seat, pour yourself a cup, and listen to Shane Heath.
Because he's going to tell us why it's time to switch from our daily dose of caffeine to something else.
And he says your body and soul will thank you. Shane, welcome to Believe in People.
Hey, happy to be here.
I'm going to jump right to it. It might be obvious, and I'm going to ask this question without coffee jitters. There's a great story behind Mud Water because I read your bio, and your journey so far has been really inspiring because life isn't easy, and I'm sure your journey wasn't easy. So for the listeners and the viewers out there, why Mud Water and why you?
Okay. My background's in design. So I started my career working in office environments, high paced. I was very ambitious. And I think like many people around me, I think specifically in the tech industry, but I think across industries, it's true. I was relying on caffeine to kind of be productive. I kind of bought into this idea that the more stimulants I drank, the more I could do and the faster I could do it. And I think what maybe was different from me or maybe more similar to design is that productivity is a factor of creativity in design. I'm also a fine artist, so oftentimes I was coming home after work and sitting in front of a canvas. And I think that made me potentially more aware or sensitive to how caffeine impacted specifically creativity. Because again, productivity and creativity, depending on what you're doing, can be connected, but they can also be separate, right? And I just found that caffeine, though, has benefits in too high of a dose. It actually inhibited creativity for me, which actually inhibited my productivity overall. And my mom has been working in the mushroom industry since before I was born. She works for the biggest mushroom grower actually in America. It's called Monterey Mushrooms. So I grew up around mushrooms. And I was kind of having this thought around like, well, I love waking up and sipping on something before starting my day. But maybe it could be more than just a vessel for high doses of caffeine. Like, what could it be? And I started looking at these functional mushrooms like lion's mane and how it can help with focus and cognitive function, and cordyceps and how it can help with energy, not like a stimulant type of energy, but a sustained energy, reishi, chaga, immune support. And really, I just started adding different ingredients that had a benefit profile that seemed interesting, a benefit profile that fit kind of my lifestyle and what I was passionate about. And I didn't have any intentions to start a business. I was kind of under the assumption that I was dealt a bad hand of cards. I was super sensitive to caffeine. Everyone around me was fine drinking it all day long. And this was just something I drank to stay sane and to stay creative and stay productive. And so I'd bring it with me to the office, and eventually people around me would be like, what is that weird looking drink with chunks of chaga floating around into it? People were calling it Shane juice. People were calling it muddy water and all these things. And it was really interesting because I came into that assumption that I spoke about. But when people would ask me what it was and why I was drinking it, it was this aha moment for me because more often than not, people would share with me that they're having a similar relationship to caffeine, to stress, to sleep that I used to have. Actually, I wasn't so different from everyone else. A lot of people were struggling with mental health, with how they found focus, how they found energy, how they rested. And so I was like, well, this is really interesting. I've spent the last 8 years building, brands, e-commerce websites, digital marketing, all these types of things. And I was like, well, what if I can, take that and apply it towards this drink that I also know how to make, and also this passion or this desire to leave the world in a better place than I found it. And so all of those things kind of came together. And in May of 2018, it was just like a spark of energy. For the first time in my life, business felt like an art project. And I put up a website and put up a little post that said, I'm not mad at coffee. I'm just disappointed. So I made something better. And a flywheel started to form. Yeah. So that was the beginning of it.
What do you think when you see, I mean, when you're talking about marketing, for example, it's not only coffee anymore. We are inundated with power drinks, drinks, all these, I guess I can name like Monster Energy or, of course, Red Bull.
Yeah.
These things are huge. But I'll tell you, if you drink a couple of those, you really feel it. And are you setting yourself up to be like the antidote for that?
I'd say to a degree. Yeah. Well, so it's interesting because caffeine is a drug. And I think for me that was surprising in a way. Like I
Yeah,
drank
people don't
coffee
know
all
that.
I drank coffee all day. I had no idea or how much caffeine I was actually drinking. So that like the active ingredient in coffee, that kind of the reason why people drink coffee is to get caffeine. Caffeine is a psychoactive stimulant, and it's the most used psychoactive stimulant on the planet. Um, why is that? Well, it's because it's disguised in drinks like Monster, Rockstar, Red Bull, and your coffee and soda. And kind of similar to sugar, maybe 40 years ago, where a lot of people would drink, a can of soda that has 45 grams of sugar in it. And they're like, I have no idea what that means. Is that a lot? Is that a
Yeah.
little? Is that good? Or is that bad? I actually found ads from those days that positioned sugar as a dieting tool. It said it would curb your hunger cravings, and it was like drink more sugar so you eat less calories or fat or whatever it is. Obviously, that's probably not good advice, right? But I think we're in a similar place with caffeine right now, where people drink kind of these unknown amounts. So if you go to Starbucks and most popular coffee shop and you order a 12-ounce Pike's Place, which is probably the most popular coffee, it has 235 milligrams of caffeine in it. Most people have no idea what that means. It kind of sounds like a big number, but you're like, is that a lot? Is that a little? What does that mean? It's very similar to sugar, in soda cans. 235 milligrams of caffeine is the equivalent of over two caffeine pills, right? So if the person you're sitting next to every day was, popping caffeine pills and kind of like, I can't start my day unless I have my caffeine pills, we'd probably be like, that's a little odd. Like you probably want to, you know, work through that. But if it's disguised in a drink, somebody cracks open a Red Bull or orders a Pike's Place, no one really questions it. And so I think that's just an interesting thing that we're trying to um, pursue, right? We're trying to bring curiosity and introspection around this psychoactive stimulant that we all, knowingly consume, but in unknown doses. And so again, I just want to say I'm not against caffeine or coffee. A lot of our products actually have some in it. What we are against is kind of a mindless routine, and we want to bring more awareness to the substance that we're consuming, more awareness around how that substance impacts our mental health, our mental well-being, and how the state of our mental well-being pretty much impacts everything in our lives.
And I think too, what's really fascinating, Shane, is that I'm trying to think for you what came first. And clearly it's this, because I hear fine arts, this creativity, this artistic side of you, this sensitivity, lifestyle, um, change, radical, perhaps, I don't know. But you had a leg up because of your mom, which I think is fascinating that your mom was in, or is in mushrooms, because it really gave you an understanding of like that whole piece where now we're just trying to catch up. Is it safe? Is it good? I'm worried. I don't know how much the dose is, so that am I going to flip out, or am I going to be calm or hyper? And that happens with me with tea. Like I'll take a certain kind of tea and it's like, whoa, that did not react well to my system. And then it's too late because it's like, it's
Yeah, it's in
not
there.
good.
Yeah.
But for you, I'm thinking, and then you're kind of in this whole, I think it was Silicon Valley, right? Did you do that
Yeah.
whole? So then this is a whole, like, were you confused? Like, were you kind of just figuring out, like, can my art, uh, being creative and being an artist and doing the things that I really love doing, how can you fit into that whole silicone corporate um, rebooting, and then you came out of to create something that was commercial, like Mudwater, and create that
Yeah.
lifestyle. And like, what was the epiphany with that? Because I know there's a whole mind thing happening for you. I mean, I feel it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, those two worlds, they don't really live too friendly together, right? Like I was kind of living two lives in a way. Um, my so maybe just to rewind a bit, when I was in college, I was I would say growing up in Santa Cruz, I was pretty open-minded, like exposed to a lot of radical ways of thinking, and there's natural food stores and things like that. Um, Once I was in college, I was very much just kind of like trying to figure it out, trying to stay safe, trying to fit in with the crowd. But then in my junior year, I had a roommate who took his life, and it was just a very eye-opening experience, obviously really difficult emotionally and spiritually, just like made me have a lot of questions. And I think one of the things that it led me to was kind of trying to figure out who I am and kind of realizing that I really wanted to take care of my mind. And so I started, exploring things that just called to me. Whereas maybe before I was, trying to do what everybody else was doing, I was now trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And so, started going to yoga classes, started training jujitsu, started, fine art, and started doing things like Ayurvedic cleanses and making kombucha in my closet and like all of these types of things. And so once I graduated college and got to Silicon Valley, I was very much so living these kind of dual lives where in the office it was hustle culture, sleep when you're dead, like let's get shit done, which actually I love. Like I have a crazy strong work ethic. But then outside the office, I was, working on fine art and eating healthy and trying to like figure out like my mental state, meditation, all of these types of things. And so, yeah, there was like a harsh contrast between those two worlds. And it ultimately led me to one, try to create a new morning ritual that served me more. And two, I just left that world also and went on to start a business that, really was rooted in this idea of like, I wanted to start, a company that created a product that I wanted to see in the world. I wanted the brand to reflect the aesthetics, the voice, the messaging that I wanted, that I aspired to communicate. And then I wanted to build a company environment that I wanted to work within as well. So it was a really transformative experience. I think it gave me some walls and some things where like, okay, cool, that's not what I want. And push me in this direction. Yeah.
So I've got a couple of questions. One, it's obvious that you are aware that what you put into your body affects how your body reacts, right?
Yeah.
That's, I mean, and your mind, and probably at the end of the day, your soul is affected by what's going in there. If you want to fill up your body with Cheetos, then your fingers are going to be orange, and the rest of you is probably going to be orange too on the
Inside
inside.
out. Yeah.
Um, so what is in mud water? What's in it that you've decided helps you? And of course, the second question is, come on, what does it taste like?
Okay. Yeah. So it's a blend of masala chai, which is a masala chai in and of itself is its own blend of ingredients. So it's black tea, which is kind of the chai component. Chai actually means tea.
Yeah.
And then the masala blend is a blend of spices. So you have like ginger, nutmeg, cinnamon,
Okay.
and things like that. And so that gives it like this nice, complex, spicy kind of profile. And then
But
there's
there is
cacao.
caffeine. There's caffeine in black tea.
Yeah, so it has 35 milligrams of caffeine in it. That's our original
Okay.
blend. We also have a blend. Actually, I'm drinking it right here with 0 milligrams. We also have a matcha with 55. So there's kind of a spectrum. All of our
But,
blends are
but
a
lower.
fraction. They're a fraction of the caffeine that you get in a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And you can really moderate or titrate how much caffeine you're intaking, find dose that works for you. I think that's probably the most important thing. And so you got the masala chai, you also have the cacao. So I'd say the flavor profile is probably dominated by those two ingredients. You kind of got, I say it kind of tastes like if like a healthy hot cocoa and a chai tea had a baby. It's kind of what it would taste like. Um, yeah, so it's earthy, it's not sweet. We don't put any sweeteners or artificial sweeteners in it. There's no milks in it. I really wanted to create a blend that's kind of similar to coffee. Like if coffee were to be introduced today, people were to try it for the first time. It's not like people are like, that's amazing. It's people fall in love with the taste because they fall in love with the whole thing, right? It's kind of like wine or anything like that. So people say it tastes better than coffee on first sip. Some, it's not for everyone, but I think the experience is something that is malleable. So a lot of people add milk, sweetener, things like that, make it their own. You can have it hot, you can have it iced, you can put it in smoothies, you can put it in your coffee too. So that's kind of the flavor profile. Those are the dominant flavor driving ingredients. And I wanted that to be true because mushrooms don't necessarily taste the best. And so we wanted to have a lot of mushrooms in there, but we didn't want you to taste them, right? I think there's amazing tasting culinary mushrooms, but mushrooms can be very earthy, and we masked that with the cacao and the spices. And so you don't taste the mushrooms, but you do get lion's mane, you get chaga, you get reishi, and you get cordyceps in really high doses of them. So they're efficacious. You feel them. Yeah.
Boy, they're good for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So these are functional mushrooms. They have a variety of benefits. Kind of each mushroom has its own benefit. So lion's mane is popularized because it's like a studied nootropic. It helps with cognitive function. There's a lot of amazing studies on nerve growth, regenerative nerve growth, things like that. A lot of people just take it for focus, for memory, those types of things. The other mushroom is cordyceps. Cordyceps is becoming popular for more athletic performance. It gives you kind of a like a sustained energy. It's not a stimulating energy, but it is energy. Helps blood flow, things like that. And then reishi can help with calming the nerves. Chaga really helps with immune support. So it's kind of this like holistic mix of functional benefits that doesn't leave you amped up, like jittery. You got calm, focus, supports your immune system, and then all the ingredients have some prebiotic fiber, so it supports your gut as well.
Wow. And then, hey, Shane, any role models that you look up to or like just collaborate with, people that you really respect that kind of help you through when things are really tough?
Yeah, I mean, there's some role models that don't necessarily know. I obviously look up to Yvon Chouinard in Patagonia. I think that, he built like a new model for business and
Yeah.
showed that business could also do good. I read the book Let My People Go Surfing years before I started Mudwater, and yeah, just a lot of the principles I think crossover, and just creating a work environment that really gives to the people that are working there more than just a paycheck. Is really cool. I mean, there's other like I try to pull various aspects from certain people. Rick Rubin, he's a big time music producer. He wrote a book on creativity. I feel like he can distill the creative process in a way that is really remarkable, and really allows it to make more sense within me. There's other founders. Aubrey Marcus, who started On It.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
sort of a friend of mine, but I really like how he grew his business, grew his personal brand, kind of, uh, you know, really transparent and open and vulnerable. Yeah, there's so many.
I know,
Yeah, and
right?
then I have some. I work with a coach. I read a lot of books. I'm reading this book right now, called The Confident Mind, and I just reached out to the author, and I'm hoping to work with him. But it's one of the most amazing books, I think. I was reading it and I sent it to like 20 of my friends, and I was like, "You got to
Who
read
wrote
this
it?
book."
Who wrote it, Shane?
His name is Nate Zimmerman. Nate Zimmerman. He's the performance psychology coach for the U.S. Army. But he's been the performance psychology coach for, athletes in the NFL, Olympic athletes, elite performers, CEOs, all of these things. And he really breaks down the science of building sustained confidence and essentially maximizing your potential in whatever field you're in.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Just before we let you go, because our time's almost up, but and Amy's going to ask you our patented, trademarked closing question. I want to ask you. You said earlier that Mudwater, your product, is a marriage between what? It's no, it's as if chocolate and coffee had a bit. What did you say?
Yeah, I don't know if they're married, but they definitely had a baby, right? So like a healthy hot cocoa and chai in a chai tea had a baby. And maybe they
Had a
got
baby.
married and lived happily ever after.
Well, it sounds like they did, but I guess I was going to say something smart alecky and say, except this baby actually will sleep through the night because it's not a caffeine buzz. Is that correct? I mean,
Yeah,
so many.
so
I'm a guy
Yeah,
that
that's a good question.
well, I mean, look, I'm Mr. Faux Euro guy, right? So I'll be out for dinner and I'll be there, and then at the end of the meal, I'll say, well, if I'll have a double espresso, please. And then
yeah,
and at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm staring, or if I'm at a Greek, I'll have a Greek coffee or a Turkish coffee, and I'll be awake all night.
yep.
Your product isn't gonna have me buzzing, grinding my teeth.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons why the category that we're creating is growing so fast is because people are becoming aware of what they put in their bodies, how it impacts their mind, all that, and they're becoming aware of caffeine and how it impacts your sleep,
Mm,
and becoming aware of how healthy sleep impacts pretty much every aspect of your life, right?
totally.
Um, Sleep, if you're not getting good sleep, it's linked to pretty much every physical and mental illness out
Mhm.
Yeah.
there. Poor sleep. And caffeine, it has a 6 hour half life. So meaning that if you take some 6 hours later, half of it's still in your system. 12 hours later, a quarter of it's still in your system, right? And
Ah,
so a lot of people will drink a couple 100 milligrams of caffeine, at 2 or 4 or what you're saying, 10 p.m., right?
yeah.
And that's in your system when you go to sleep. And it'll really impact your sleep regardless of whether you think so or not. There's a lot of people that will be like, yeah, I have no problem falling asleep, staying asleep, whatever. But it's the quality of depth of sleep. There's like the REM cycle, there's the deep sleep cycles, and that's really
Yeah.
where your brain just kind of takes out the trash, stores all the memories. And if you're not getting that on a regular basis, it can lead to a lot of
It's
really,
true.
really bad things. But also just on a day-to-day basis can, decrease your productivity, decrease your focus, decrease your ability to handle stress. It also impacts the decisions you make. So they've done a lot of studies on sleep and
Mm.
people's decisions around food. When you're underslept, you typically make poor dietary decisions. So it's just kind of this lead domino, right? Getting good sleep is a lead domino to healthy physical, mental, spiritual health. And with our product has a lot less caffeine. I still wouldn't recommend drinking our product at night. It does have our original blend has 35 milligrams of caffeine in it. And so if I were to drink it at night, it would impact my sleep. That said, if you drink some in the morning, 35 milligrams, you're going to have very, very little of it at night. The other thing is our product has black tea in it, and that's the main source of caffeine. And black tea has naturally occurring L-theanine, which is a component in black tea. It's in green tea as well. That actually is a calming effect. It kind of softens the harshness of caffeine and kind of the energy spike and all of that. So that helps with the jitters, kind of the anxiety, the adrenaline, all of that stuff with the caffeine. So yeah, you can drink. One of the reasons why I started exploring a product that eventually became Mud Water was because I wasn't sleeping well. And when I wasn't sleeping well, I wasn't thinking well, I wasn't feeling well. It was just everything was off, right? And when I started drinking less caffeine, the sleep sorted itself out and kind of everything else in my life sorted itself out as well.
That's great. You know what? In my perfect world, you'd have a mud water just like Starbucks on different corners. Like, I mean, I'm looking for that. Are you have a flagship? Do you have a flagship?
Yeah.
Yeah. In
Yeah, so
Cal.
we just opened it. Yeah, we just opened our first coffee-free mushroom cafe, Mudwater Cafe here in the heart of Santa Monica. So it's on the corner of Main Street and Ocean Park if
Good. I'm
anybody's
going.
around
I'll
there.
be there.
And yeah, it's a pretty amazing space. It's not just a cafe, it's like a full-bodied expression of our brand. So we have a co-working space, there's a meditation room, we have daily meditations, we have nightly breathwork classes. It's called Mudwater Gather, and the intention is to create a space for people to gather, to connect, and then of course try any of our products.
That's
Well,
sensational. That's
now
really
that now that now that we've given you, several hundred millions of dollars of free advertising with that question, Amy.
He doesn't need it.
It sounds like most of what you do and what you've created assists your well-being. And now you've decided to share that with the rest of us. That says to me that you still have hope for the rest of us. So I want to ask you our closing question, because Amy blew her chance a minute ago.
I did.
Why do you believe in people?
Cool question. Well, for one, I think people is what we got. It's all we got. And one reason that I think I'm passionate about what I do is because when I look around the world, it's very easy to become kind of hopeless. Like there's a lot of issues plaguing humanity, and they seem pretty disparate. You're just like, how can we solve all of these things? Like we solve that one, this one pops up, whatever. I think where I get hope and where I get hope in people is when I think about the health of our minds. Like what is the root cause? Like where does it all begin? And it all begins with the health of our inner worlds. And if the health of our inner worlds, our mental state, our center for thoughts, emotions, feelings is in a good space, I believe that a cascade of positive outcomes follows. It's sort of the lead domino, because everything from how we treat ourselves to how we treat each other to how we treat the planet to the businesses we're inspired to start, all of these things, they all stem from our inner worlds. And so I try to focus there. I try to focus on creating blueprints for creating mental well-being. And then the hope I feel from that is you do that enough, you do that across enough people, the decisions that are made, how we treat everybody, how we treat the planet, all these things, they start to fall into place. And all of those separate issues that made me feel hopeless, I think that there's hope in turning those things around.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shane. Thanks so much. Thanks for creating Mudwater.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was fun. Great questions.
Thanks.
Well, what I found interesting about that is that the people who have the ultimate stress-filled jobs in the world are the ones that are always drinking the most coffee. I don't know if that's related or not, but I do know in my career, I was fueled by coffee, and it's kind of romanticized, right? Like, oh, I'm coffee, coffee this, cup of Joe, blah, blah. But, if you have too much coffee, you feel it. Your teeth starts to itch. So, I don't know, maybe I'll start cutting down a little bit and growing outward from the inside.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Your teeth start to itch. I have never heard that before. But I like the fact that Shane hasn't had an easy journey. And I think that what the most important thing for me, and hopefully for the viewers and listeners, is that I think he was a process of elimination. Like he had, he was in Silicon Valley. He did all these things. He could have stayed there. But he it was a process of elimination. And I think he sort of really honed in on what is it that's important to him. It's a lifestyle. This is about gathering, community, and it's all wrapped around something he created that's healthy. And that's why I think that, keep going with what it is that, or that you find you want to do. And I think that that's what's so inspiring. He does offer hope.
And keep listening to this podcast once a week, because we'll meet someone as equally as interesting next time on Believe in People. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.